Okay, we are recording now. All right. Welcome everybody to Intro to Trail Running. I am Tiffany, the owner of TerraLoco, and I'm really excited to have two local trail running experts with us. And if you're joining us here tonight, we have a couple of questions that people have asked on Facebook. We'll get to those. You can definitely ask your questions in the chat as well too. And if we have time, we'll also have an opportunity maybe to do some live questions as well. But our exciting guests tonight are the guys from Trail Transformation. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about what you guys do, and why we should, listen to what you have to say about trail running.
Go for it.
I'm Jake Heggie. I'm a physical therapist down here in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Started Trail Transformation 6-7 years ago as kind of a way to help people learn about trail running. Honestly, I got into the sport and there really wasn't any information on how to make the transition from road running into the whole trail scene. So a lot of trial by fire, but now we've developed a team of coaches, physical therapists, dietitians, where we really help people make that smooth and safe transition from road running to trail running, or people that are just looking to get into running in general. But it's been a blast. We work on all sorts of strength and mobility training. Obviously, we're writing the programming side of things, but the goal today is to get into some of the simpler questions of what trail running is and how to make that transition. And with me here is Coach Pat.
Yeah, so my name's Pat Griffith, also a physical therapist and a trail transformation coach. But yeah, I mean, big thing tonight is kind of answering your guys' questions and getting into kind of the fun trail stuff. So kind of my personal background, I've kind of done everything under the sun, from triathlons to Nordic skiing to road running. But probably my favorite thing right now is definitely more of the trail scene and kind of ultra running stuff. So lots of things to learn and lots of fun things to kind of gain education wise from that transition. So
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks guys for joining us. I think there's quite a few questions that were asked on the Facebook event page, and so I kind of put these into sort of categories of the kind of questions that people are asking. And I think, probably one of the big ones for people that are new to trail running entirely is, what is the difference between road running and trail running? What should your how should you change maybe your expectations of, your speed and your endurance and things like that? And then also, how do you train differently? Is it different or is it, the same as road running?
yeah. So I mean, with pace and speed, things kind of go out the window, right? So the big thing with road running, you're always kind of aiming for a goal pace or a goal time, and it's pretty easy to find a consistent section of road that you're training on, or a track. So it's a nice way to measure objectively where you're at in terms of the speed side of things. With trail running, everything kind of goes out the window in terms of like your speed, because it totally depends on the trail that you're running on, the weather, how far you're going. So as far as kind of the speed and endurance and tracking where you're at for trail running, the big thing that we focus on is something called rating of perceived effort or perceived exertion. So with that, it's not only a chance to you to kind of measure how your body's feeling from run to run, but it's also a chance for you to check in with yourself. And a 10-minute mile on one trail might feel like a 15-minute mile on another trail based on kind of that perceived effort. So and the big thing that we focus on with trail running is more of a time base. So a lot of times if you're training for like a specific distance, like a half marathon or even like a 5K, you're usually finding like a specific distance on the road that you're shooting for your speed workouts or long runs. With trail running, it's a lot more based on your time. Again, mainly because every trail is going to be different. So more concerned about your time that you're running and moving through the trail rather than like set distance. So again, 20 miles on the road would probably be equal to maybe like 12 miles on the trail. at least around here. So things vary quite a bit distance wise, but there's a lot of factors that are at play that you can look at, both from like elevation, technical aspects of the trail, weather. So yeah.
So you're saying somebody could, different trails are going to produce different results from, the same person. That, on one trail you might have this, this is your pace, and on another trail it's going to be different just because of the difference in the difficulty of the trail.
Oh, totally. I mean, think about running on like a crushed limestone bike trail versus going for a run around Whitewater State Park where there's tons of rocks and roots and lots of hills to climb. You might be cruising along at like an 8-minute pace on the bike trail. Then you go to Whitewater and you're, running 11 or 12-minute pace. But that's why we tend to focus a little bit more on the effort side of things.
Sure. So then, yeah, what about like the training though? Is it different? Do you train differently for trail running versus road running?
So I think it depends if you're truly getting started in trail running as a beginner, because a lot of people, their big concern is I'm going to fall. There's rocks and roots. I need to be careful to avoid those things so I don't roll an ankle or hurt myself. So something that I'll recommend is go for some hikes, on these trail systems, especially if there's more rocks and roots or hills. Like, just kind of get to know the terrain, see how your body handles the climbing, all the rocks and roots. Make sure your ankles, are feeling okay, versus just, okay, I'm going to go run, for 45 minutes at this on this trail. Maybe you just go for a 45-minute hike instead, to kind of ease into it so your body knows what to expect. And that's where then you can say, okay, I feel comfortable on this trail. Now I'm going to start running more of the flat sections of it. And then as you start to feel more comfortable, you can start to run some of the uphills. And, as you get even more comfortable, you can start to run some of the downhills. But truly just getting your body used to the terrain. And something that we've done in the past actually with you guys is the whole like intro to trail running clinics. So working on how to navigate technical terrain, like by changing up truly the way you're running versus, cadence and the way you're holding your body. But that gets a little bit more complicated in the grand scheme of things, but that's another easy way to modify your trail running form.
Yeah, and kind of just to touch on the training side of things too, especially during the week, a lot of people are busy and maybe don't have like direct access to trails. So a lot of times you can work on actually training for, like, if you're training for a specific trail race or wanting to get into maybe a trail race down the line. There's lots of things that you can do training both on the roads, as well as doing some like strength specific movements that are going to help strengthen the ankles, help strengthen the hips, that are really important for making sure that you're preventing any injuries and making sure that you're a little bit more confident when you do get on the trails, whether it's for a weekday or weekend run. But yeah.
So you think, your strength of like your ankles, your knees, kind of those sort of key pivot points, those are really important to focus on.
Yeah, and like Jake said, probably the biggest difference that you'll notice from running on the roads to running on trails is kind of that ankle strength. So the first kind of line of defense in terms of balance is going to be your ankles. So they're kind of your first big point that keeps you upright, and then it goes to a little bit more of the hips, and then it goes to just protecting yourself, basically falling down. So getting those big pieces of hips and ankles can help a lot with the balance piece and just training in different directions. So when you think about road running, it's very straight. You're going on sidewalks, you might have a turn here and there, but with trail running, it's completely variable. You might be having to hike some portions. You're always turning and zigzagging in and out. There's rocks, roots, lots of different things. So training that system to not only be good with balance, but also be good with strength is definitely important. So probably the best way to do that is to get on the trails, but there's lots of different ways that you can do that if you don't have like daily access to trails. So
Yeah. suggestion about going out hiking, first, just like getting, used to it and, you know, again, getting familiar with the trail, so that when, you do go out and run, you can know what to kind of expect. So, yeah, that's a great suggestion. Um, Okay, so so differences between roads and trails. Yeah, there's a little bit of differences in terms of how you might train, what your expectations, about what your effort level would be, and things like that. Yeah, there's some differences there. I think one of the other big questions that was kind of coming up a lot was on sort of like gear and shoes, and kind of like, why do I need all this other stuff? Like, if I'm road running, I just put my shoes on and go out the door. Do I need different things for trail running than I do for the road?
So we get this question. I help out with the Hickson 50 trail race here in La Crosse. And one of the common questions that we get from people is, do I need trail shoes for this race? Like, well, technically you're out there running. No, you don't need road shoes, but it really, really helps. Especially if there's any sort of rocks or, kind of loose dirt. The trail shoes have so much more tread to the bottom that you're going to feel so much more secure when you are, running uphill or downhill, or just at that added kind of protection as well. And I mean, you can kind of dive into it as well with the trail shoes, but there's a lot more durability within the design of the trail shoe as well. So we've seen people, run trail races with road shoes, but it's usually kind of entertaining because they're sliding around. Versus, if you have some nice traction or tread to the bottom of your shoe, you just feel a lot more stable and secure, which just adds to the whole confidence portion of trail running.
So, okay, we'll come back to shoes, I think, but what about other stuff? There were some questions on like how to carry food and water, what sort of like essentials are, and I think the implication of that question was, do I need to bring like a first aid kit, or what's the safety? What are the safety sort of things to think about when you're trail running? Yeah, or clothing. Like, is any of that different, or same kind of things you would with road running?
From a safety standpoint, I think it's also important to mention that you should always plan out your route ahead of time. So if you're new to a park or a trail system, like take a photo of the map or bring a map with you so you at least know where you're at. So if something does happen, if you roll your ankle or you take a tumble, that you know how to quickly get back to your car in the first place. Yes, it's fun to go and explore new places, but you also want that added safety of like, okay, if something does happen, how can I quickly go get aid? But hydration is huge. Because of that, you might be out there for a little bit longer, where, if you're out on a road run, there might be some water stops along the way, or go inside a gas station to, grab some water. But carrying water in the form of a handheld, a waist pack, or a vest are all great options. Part of it depends on your comfort level of, do you want to hold it or carry it on your back? Everyone has their different preferences. I mean, I typically go with a handheld. What do you use?
Yeah, I think it depends on how long you're going out there for too. So a lot of like the shorter runs, where it's especially like a hot day, might have just the handheld water bottle. But if I'm going for some of my long runs on the trail, I usually always wear like a vest, just because it's easy to carry stuff, both from the nutrition side of things and hydration side of things, and it's just more comfortable. So yeah, I think that's kind of a unique thing. Not a ton of road runners wear vests. I've seen a few maybe, but that's usually kind of like a trail thing. But very comfortable, and you're just able to pack a lot more things into the vest, versus just like a waist belt or a handheld. So
Yeah, sure. Just so it's watching at home, I've brought a couple of options just to show you guys of kind of things that we're talking about here. this is an example of a handheld option. This is a soft flask, which is kind of nice because as you empty water, it's not this, it doesn't stay the same size. So, you know, it's a lot lighter than some of the hard ones. I've also heard people say that wearing a handheld one can kind of protect from falls. Is that as well?
Definitely, definitely. There's been numerous times I've taken a tumble, and thankfully that handheld has protected the impact.
Yeah. So yeah, these kind of things though, like Pat said, you know, aren't going to carry, you know, you get a little bit of water, but you don't really have the option to carry, you know, a whole lot of other things. Maybe, you know, one gel or two, but you know, just there's just not a whole lot, you know, of carrying capacity in something like this versus a you know, a vest, which is, and this is a Solomon vest. This is what I use for my trail running or long distance running. But you know, that'll carry, you know, a 1.5 or 2 liter bladder. And personally, I like the vest for a couple of reasons. Again, one, that it keeps, you know, my hips and everything else free. You're not kind of constantly like finagling with a belt or, you know, trying to, you know, get things straightened out or whatever. You just kind of put it on and it stays put, which I like. The you know, the tubes, you know, are kind of nice as well too, because you don't have to necessarily like you know, grab something or pull something out of a pocket or whatever. So that's kind of nice. But I really like the amount of storage, you know. I mean, like this thing will carry, I mean, you put a whole jacket in there, you put a whole bunch of nutrition in there. You know, you could even carry hiking poles in a vest like this as well too. So yeah, personally, that, you know, this is kind of what I've liked to use in the past for trail running. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about a vest. But you can see, I mean, there's a ton of pockets in there. So, you know, for Ragnar, it's lots of lights, lots of tissues, lots of food, you know, all sorts of stuff in there. You can fit a ton of things in there. So that's what we're talking about in terms of
vests have come a long ways from when they first started. Like, you can put something like that on and not even feel like there's any added weight or bulk. It just kind of, you know, sits on your back and just feels like it's a part of you, where before they were just kind of all, you know, sliding side to side, but now they really feel as a part of your run. A little tip of the of running: so when you fill up the bladder, flip it upside down and then suck the air out. It prevents all that sloshing that goes on. One of the best things I ever learned.
okay, yeah, smart, awesome. So yeah, I do want to come back to shoes, but let's talk about a couple of other things, like you know, so somebody had asked about like clothing. Is, you know, do you feel like, is there a difference in type, you know, like how you dress for trail running versus road running? I mean, obviously the weather makes a difference, you know, but anything specific to think about when trail running?
Not really, especially like for warmer temperatures. I personally don't really change anything like running roads versus running trails. Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's been a lot more like compression wear that's become popular over the years to help prevent a runner's, you know, worst enemy, which is chafing. Especially as you're out there hiking or running, and you're out there for maybe a little bit longer, you're just a little more susceptible to the chafing side of things. And obviously, there's all sorts of things you can apply, but the clothing has come a long ways too, from just helping like wick moisture away and prevent that from becoming an issue as well.
Sure. And there's also some kind of fabrics that are specific to trail running as well too, that I've seen from some brands, where they're just they're more snag resistant, you know, so you don't have to worry about getting a tear in, you know, a pair of shorts, you know, your $60-$70 pair of shorts
Yes.
when you're out trail running. So yeah. Okay, well, what about, like, somebody asked about getting how you prevent getting debris into your shoes. Is there a trick to that, or is that just something that comes with trail running?
So there's obviously, getting it into your sock, and then there's getting it into your shoe. An easy way to prevent it from getting into the sock is just wear some of the um, higher, like, half, you know, shin socks. But then from getting it into the shoe, there's gaiters that they've developed where a lot of shoes actually come with it. It's basically like, what you call it, like
Something that goes a little bit higher up the shin.
yeah, it's basically another extra layer of material that goes over the top of your shoe and goes up over and over your shin. And there's usually some anchor points like within the shoe that you can attach the gaiter to prevent the rocks or dirt getting in there.
The shoe cover.
Yeah, it's basically a shoe cover, but it goes up the shin a little higher.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I brought a couple other things to show, kind of people sort of what we're talking about here. So my personal favorite socks are in Gingy. Now I almost everybody, 99.9% of the people that I've had try the toe socks have loved them and come back and bought more. Personally though, I mean, yeah, the tall sock, I mean, that is a huge thing to keeping debris and keeping abrasion and stuff like that from happening as well. And also on a good sock for trail running, you'll have usually maybe a little bit more padding as well. And you'll also have, wool is obviously a good option for trail running because it will dry quickly. So if you're, run through a big puddle, it'll dry a lot quicker than, a synthetic would. So, those are kind of some things to think about when it comes to socks. Yeah, my favorite socks. That's all I wear.
Yeah, and that's a big thing with trail running too, is just making sure your feet stay dry, because blisters can happen because you're up on your toes a little bit more if you're hiking up a hill or water crossings. Your shoes and feet are just a little bit more susceptible to blisters. So proper socks is a must.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I thought we couldn't kind of dive into shoes just a little bit. I mean, the thing about shoes is that everybody's different. What one shoe is going to work for one person is not going to work for somebody else. So I just brought a couple of kind of the best sellers, some of the ones that are kind of flying off the shelves at TerraLoco. But more importantly, to kind of give you an idea of like what it is that's different between a trail shoe and a road shoe. So this guy here, we just got in the other day. This is the Saucony Mad River. This is a really great option for kind of new trail runners, I think, because it's still pretty flexible. It kind of feels more like a road shoe than it does a trail shoe. It doesn't have a rock plate. Sorry, my dog. Doggone. This is so much fun working from home, isn't it, everybody? Okay. So yeah, it doesn't have a rock plate. And a rock plate you'll find in some trail shoes. And a rock plate basically is like a hard piece of, plastic or metal that is in the shoe, kind of in this sort of midfoot, forefoot area, helps prevent, feeling rocks and roots and things kind of poking up into, your foot and feeling that when you're running. But, depending on how technical your trails are and where you're running, you most likely don't necessarily need a rock plate. So that's what I like about this one, is that it still has a little bit of that flex and it feels more like a road shoe, and you could use it on the road as well. But, again, talking about like grip and, slipping and sliding and mud and stuff, you want a more grippy outsole. So something with a more aggressive outsole is going to help keep you from sliding around on the trails. This is kind of an interesting one because you can see that the teeth on this actually go in different directions, and so what that does is it actually helps you when you're going uphill as well as when you're going downhill. So my favorite road trail shoe is from Ultra. So this is the Superior, and they have the same kind of thing. Again, multi-directional lugs. They're going to help you up, down, left, right, different directions. So, again, like you guys were saying earlier, you don't necessarily need a trail shoe, but it's definitely going to make your life a lot easier when you're out there. So you'll also find that most trail shoes have a little bit more protection in the upper. So they're designed again for a little bit more of that abrasion resistance, a little bit more of that water resistance. Of course, you can get them in a Gore-Tex that's going to be waterproof basically, but then it's not going to breathe as well. So that's something to kind of think about. And then this is another one that we saw a lot. This is the Hoka Speed Goat. So for Hoka fans out there, this is kind of one of their more aggressive technical trail runners. You see it has a Vibram outsole, so it's very sticky. Again, multi-directional lugs here, and you get a ton of cushion and support. So for those people that are crazy enough to do 50-mile or more trail runs, Hoka is kind of one that is kind of a winner in that respect. What do you guys run in for trail runners? Solomon, or are we ultra runners, or what do you guys use?
I like to keep it interesting, give a little love to everyone. And I think that's also important is, I mean, you can even get into, certain types of trail shoes given the type of trail that you're running on, right? Is something with a rock plate, if I'm running on, like Whitewater State Park, where there's just a lot of more rocks and roots versus, using the Saucony, TR for something like a bike trail or, maybe grass, where I still want some traction, but I don't need that protection of the rock plate. But yeah, I also use Hoka Speed Goats for some of my longer runs, some Solomon. It's nice to kind of mix it up too, because then my feet never get accustomed to just one shoe. It kind of keeps my foot engaged, like all those little foot intrinsic muscles activated, and helps with ankle stability in the long run. So buy more trail shoes.
Someone in the chat asked if Gore-Tex shoes are worth it. So normally, you have a non-Gore-Tex version and a Gore-Tex version of a pair of shoes. Usually the Gore-Tex version is about $20 more. So it's not a huge difference, but what do you guys think? Do you like to look for a shoe that has Gore-Tex, or do you avoid that for the breathability factor? Or does it depend, maybe?
Yeah, I feel like it kind of depends. I personally don't specifically go look for a shoe with Gore-Tex, just because I mean it would probably be really nice for something like winter, like running in the snow. That's probably where I'd probably use it the most. But just with dry terrain, it's better to have that breathability in my mind. But if you're doing a lot of wet, marshy running or river crossings, like that would be something that it would be helpful for sure.
Sure. Okay. So one of the other questions that kind of came up quite a bit on the event page was kind of like how to find trails to run on. And in my mind, I'm also kind of thinking like, do I need to think about how technical this trail is? Like if I'm a new runner, do I need to find trails that are less hilly or whatever, versus is there a way to figure out like how technical a trail is, or which ones I should avoid as a new trail runner?
Yeah, so there's this really great app called All Trails. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of it, but it's nice because you can basically search any area that you're in, whether it's like your hometown or on vacation, and you can actually put in like what you're looking for. So specifically for like trail running, you can put like level of difficulty. It'll show like the trail system and how different loops. It'll have people rate or put comments on what it was like during different times of the year. So it's really kind of an all-in-one tool. It's also great if you're just starting out with kind of getting used to trails. So it also has options for hiking, bird watching, mountain biking. So kind of anything trail related. It's called All Trails, ALL Trails. So.
And that's where kind of like I recommended too, is like finding one of those areas. on all trails, or even just typing in local hiking trails into Google and checking it out by hiking it first. Because a technical trail to me might be a different, level of technical trail to Pat. So going out there and see what you feel comfortable with, like, oh, I would, never want to run this one, or maybe someday I'll ease into it, but at least going out there and hiking it first to know what you're in for. And going back to the whole kind of getting lost side of things as well, bring that map with you, so like, hey, maybe there's a really cool overlook that I want to get to today. I take this trail to get there, because usually at most parks there's not just one trail, it's usually an interweb of a lot of different trails, and it's easy to get turned around.
Okay, so around here, like, what are you guys's, what kind of trails, what trails do you go to? What are your favorite trails? I mean, you guys are in La Crosse, so you're a little bit further away from us in Rochester, but you probably do a little bit of, kind of in between. And I mean, why not explore and, find new trails as well too. So what are your favorite trails?
So by you guys, I really like the Whitewater State Park. Honestly, it's probably one of the coolest hidden gems in the entire southeast area of Wisconsin. It's, you're driving through cornfields, and then all of a sudden you just drop down into the valley, and there's a lot of campgrounds, there's the river, there's some really cool bluffs, and they have quite a few hiking trails around the whole area of the park too. I think we got
6 hours in last.
Yeah, we did like a
big training.
6-hour training run there last summer. But then there's also Chester Woods, that's close by. And that's a little bit more of your rolling, kind of cross-country ski trail type feel. It's not super technical, mostly grass. But those are some really, really cool options. And I think there's actually an event going on at Whitewater here in a month. And then I know they have a race at Chester Woods as well, usually in June.
Yeah, Rochester too. We also have Quarry Hill is another good option. And everybody else, who's on here, we have quite a few people on. Go ahead and drop in the chat, your favorite trails or where you like to go, so we can kind of get some ideas. And I'll definitely put that together and post it on the Facebook event as well too, so we can kind of get all that together of what our favorite trails are around here. But yeah, there is going to be a trail event at Chester Woods, and also at Oxbow, that Tom O'Leary from Team Red puts on. And so yeah, a couple options coming up here around here. And now there's also, are you guys still involved in the Storm the Trail series? Yep. Yeah. Yep. So where is that, and what's that all about? Or is there?
So Bill and Mandy are the ones that put that on, and I think they have the Storm the Park in April at Whitewater.
Okay.
Coming up here in a few weeks.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
And then they have near Winona, there's a couple other trail events that they put on, and it's a wide variety of distances as well. It's not just the long ultra marathon stuff. There's some 5Ks and up distances as well.
Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm a new, I'm interested in trail running. Do I literally just go to all trails, find a trail within my area, and just go out and run it? I mean, is there more to it, or is that it? Just find something and go do it. I mean, besides the preparation part, but.
I think it's best to kind of go and do it with a friend first, just for that whole experience factor. So, adding to the whole confidence portion of it, or someone that's experienced and has, explored that trail before. Cause that way you're not like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Where am I? It just helps add to that security of, okay, I'm, running this trail with a friend that, it's a little less unknown. But the other thing too is, that's different than road running, is kind of let your mind, wander when you're out there. You're truly immersed in nature, soak in the surroundings, take in the, all the scenery of the views, the trees, all that. Cause, when we're typically road running and, surrounded by traffic, people, the unique thing about trail running is you're, out there with your thoughts.
Yeah, and I would say that trail running really requires a lot of just mental focus too, especially when you're first starting out, because there's not really, like Jake said, any opportunity to basically just zone out and think about, oh, the traffic or people. Like, you have to think about every rock root, where you're going, looking around, making sure that you're still staying upright. So that makes the time go by a lot faster, in my opinion, as well as kind of getting out into the nature side of things. So
Yeah, I agree 100%. Is that yeah, it goes by a lot. It's just I feel like there's a lot more. In some ways, there's a lot more distractions. There's like all these things to sort of like pay attention to, and so instead of being able to just sort of zone out and then suddenly being like, oh, I thought I just ran however many miles, and really it hasn't been that long. But like on the trail, it's just like there's always something something coming up, something to think about, how I'm going to tackle this trail, this hill, how I'm going to deal with these this water crossing or whatever it is that's coming up. Yeah, it's fun. I like it a lot. And I messed up my ankle last in the fall, in September, and I just haven't I've been slowly easing back into running, and I'm kind of worried about like getting back out on the trails. But I really want to get out there. I'm just so like antsy about it.
We'll send you some exercises.
Awesome. Um, okay, so one of the other questions that was on the Facebook event that I kind of want to get to, because I think it's kind of an interesting question, is kind of talking about long distance trail running. So for people that don't know, trail runners do a lot of these ultra distances, and I've done a couple of Ragnars, so that's about what is it, like 30 miles or so, over the course of 24 hours. So it's broken up. It's not terrible. But I mean, I know people that are doing like 100-mile trail runs, overnight, like, it's insane. And somebody had asked about, a 50-mile trail run and support. And so my first question is like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to run 50 miles? What's that all about? Convince me that it's a good idea.
Oh boy, where do we get started? So I've done a handful of hundreds. I think I've done like ultimately like 50 something races, 50K or more, over the last like 10 years or so. But there's something unique to pushing your body and your mind to the limit. You might crash and burn, but the cool thing is pulling yourself out of it and still going. Every race is going to come with obstacles. It's how you approach those obstacles and keep moving on. There's definitely times during a race I'm like, why am I out here? And then I remind myself that I paid money for it, so I better get it done. But yeah, it's something of just being able to push your body and mind to that past what you think you could normally do, and then achieve it. And it's super satisfying. It's also very fatiguing, but it's addicting.
So then with these like long trail runs, you usually get some support crew, and so for people that don't know, usually you can kind of have at least a couple of people that can kind of be along the route to sort of provide that support, of whether it's a change of shoes or whatever along the way. Do you guys have any recommendations on how to best utilize a support crew, or what kind of things are like most important when it comes to a support crew?
yeah, so I think it kind of really depends on the distance. I mean, for a 50-miler, you're probably not going to have the ability to have a pacer, but having crew members to bring things that that work well for your nutrition. So having that, just because aid stations are so variable, and especially right now with COVID, aid stations might not be there as well. So crew is like a huge part of the ultra running experience, not only from like bringing you things and helping you change socks or get you a new vest, but more so from like the mental side of things. Like when you're running for that long of time and you're just by yourself with your thoughts or with a few other people, like getting a familiar face, having someone cheer you up, give you a good joke, or just give you a good kick in the butt to get going out of the aid station, like that's invaluable, especially like when it comes to the ultra running, because I would say that it's such a mental game. Like physically, it's actually not that much different than training for like a marathon. I would say that the big piece is more of the mental stuff. So
Yeah. So Amanda asked, and I think this is a great question. So how much training do I need before I can do 100 mile? Like, I mean, what are we talking about? A couple years, 6 months, 10 years, a decade? Like, I mean, how long till before I can run 100 mile?
Oh man, the human body can do some amazing things.
yeah.
You know, it's what do you feel comfortable with, and what's a safe time frame. And we, as you know, physical therapists always have to err on the side of caution a little bit too. Of like, yeah, we can always keep pushing you, but where's that fine line of, you know, overdoing it and causing an injury? So trying to take more the slow, steady, safe approach. And there's definitely some people that, you know, want to do it and like, okay, maybe let's wait until next year, or, you know, get a couple more 50 milers or 100Ks under your belt so you feel confident, and make sure you actually, you know, want to do that distance in the first place, that you want to, you know, double it basically. um,
And I think the ultra really comes like down to the experience, especially like jump into a 100 mile race. Like the experience is invaluable. Just getting to those dark places and getting yourself out of them is probably the most important, like learning lessons that it's hard to get at just with training. So that's why you see some of the like top ultra runners, they're actually getting into their like late 30s 40s, and they're still able to do really well even though they're not like in their peak physically. Mentally they're just super strong. And like if you look at someone like Jake, has a lot of just, I mean, he's starting a family now, probably not getting as much training as he was 4 years ago, but he's able to just use that experience that he's gained from all the races to still be able to push from like that endurance side of things. So
Yeah.
Going back to the crew side of things, so it's really important to sit down with your crew members before the race and hash out the game plan of, okay, I, you know, need this food or this, you know, fluid. Here's, you know, here's how to fill up my bladder. Here's how to, you know, tie these. Here's how I like my shoes tied. You know, all those little things, because you know, by the time you get to your crew, you're kind of a zombie, not always the most aware of certain things. So just making sure you're on the same page. And the other thing too, like Pat said, some people react differently. Some people want to, you know, their handheld, oh, it's going to be okay, we'll get through this. And some people want tough love, you know, they need a little, you know, kick in the butt to keep things going. So talking through with the crew of how you want the situation handled, because it's easy for the crew as well to say, oh, they look like they're hurting, they're slowing down, you know, we should, you know, pull out of the race. But you know, that's why the runner has the crew in the first place, is to help them, you know, push through those points.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to make sure that we kind of talked about, or I saw mentioned in the chat, was the Southeast Minnesota Trail Runners. So, and I think that I saw, yeah, Dan is on the chat here. So yeah, so Dan, I don't know if you can turn your video on, if you don't mind telling us about the Southeast Minnesota Trail Runners and you know what you guys do. So they're a pretty cool group. So you know, especially for intro kind of new people. Let's see, is he still on? Dan, are you still on? There he is. I see him. See him. let's see if he'll get on. But yeah, Southeast Minnesota Trail Runners, yeah, they do a weekly trail run.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Tell us about what you guys do. Yes, yes. Okay. Yeah. Tell us about what you guys do.
You're kind of fading on me, but I think you're asking what we do. So we meet weekly, usually on Tuesday nights, about 6:15. We run probably 20 different trails in the Rochester, Winona area. We welcome runners of all experience levels, all speeds. We usually have people that hike with us. We break into little groups, subgroups of similar type speeds. And then after our runs, once COVID is over, anyhow, we kind of all gather together and whoever wants to and kind of make a little party out of it. Met a lot of great friends over the years doing this. This was about our 11th year of the group now. So, and you can find us on Facebook under SEMN Trail Runners. Join the page again. The group, not the page, and
All right. So yeah, Dan's kind of cutting out a little bit there, but yeah, the Southeast Minnesota Trail Runners, yeah, you go to their Facebook group, join the group, and then yeah, they post the different runs they do every week. So you know when you guys were, you know, our guys from Trail Transformation were talking about running with people that are familiar with the trails. I mean, you know, that's like a perfect opportunity to, you know, go with a group that, you know, is familiar with the trails and just kind of get yourself comfortable with the trail. So yeah, it's a great option for people in our area. So I think I went through kind of most of the questions that were sort of asked on the Facebook group. So, you know, Pat, Jake, do you guys want to add anything here? And then anybody else that wants to ask questions in the chat or, you know, jump in live here and unmute yourself and ask questions. Yeah, anything else you guys want to add?
Once you go down the trail running route, you don't go back. It's a lot of fun. There's so many places to explore. There's a lot to learn. And we're here for, you know, any questions that you guys have along the way. Don't hesitate to reach out via Facebook or Instagram or our website. You know, I'm sure once things settle down, we'll be putting on another like intro to trail running clinic. So like I said, kind of going over those fundamentals of running form on the technical stuff, the hills, talking some more hydration, nutrition, all that stuff as well.
Sure. Okay. So Amanda was asking if there were any beginner trail groups in the La Crosse area. Do you guys know of any groups that are kind of meeting up for people that are maybe a little, you know, slower or just starting out?
So we do have like a trail running like La Crosse Facebook group. We don't have necessarily like set group runs, especially with COVID. Hopefully we'll be able to start some stuff back up again. But a lot of people will post just in there and ask like if anybody wants to run on a Saturday morning and kind of like what they're going for and what their pace is. So that's a good place to have people meet centrally, and then people that are maybe a little bit newer to trails can kind of explore different things together. And obviously people that running a little bit faster can jump in that, but there's lots of different options as far as that goes. It's just kind of getting to know local people because everyone's got a different place of where they're at for trail running experience. So we can add you to that, Amanda.
Yeah, so I think like so everybody, yeah, keep asking questions if you have questions, but you know, I think one of the things that about trail running is that it's kind of intimidating to people. I think people have this sort of like, I don't know what it is, you know, that they just like worried. I think maybe it's worried about falling or you know, so it's kind of an interesting thing to sort of like get over, that intimidation factor of, just go out and do it. I mean, at least that was my experience, is that like I just had to just do it. And the first time I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Why wasn't I doing this before? And yeah, you might fall, but that's okay. What do you guys think about in terms of like, falling? Is there like a good way to fall? Like, is there like some method to like making sure you don't injure yourself, some sort of trick?
So a lot of it can kind of be prevented from the whole ankle stability side of things. If you really work on that, that will save a lot of potential issues. Actually, a few weeks ago, Pat took a pretty nasty almost tumble. He was running right in front of me, slipped, and I'm not kidding you, his head was like touching the ground
Core strength.
for a good couple strides, but he saved it. But yeah, so core strength. But if you do, get close to falling, or if you feel like you're about to tumble, do not stick your arm out. It's best to keep your arm kind of in and just kind of roll with it. Anytime, especially on rocks or roots, if your arm is out, you really risk kind of some sort of wrist injury or shoulder. You're much better off just to roll with it. And this is where too, like getting into some of the fundamentals of trail running, like a shorter, faster stride is really beneficial because it allows you more time to react, versus if you're taking really long strides and you land on, something that's not quite steady, like a loose rock or something, and you start to slip, you don't have as much time to react and you're most likely to go down. But if you're taking shorter, faster steps, like increasing your cadence, and you do step on that, your next foot is about to land. So it's much easier to save yourself or recover.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if there's additional questions, go ahead and ask those in the chat. Yeah, Dan is advising everybody to tuck and roll, and that's definitely the best
Yes.
best option. Yeah, I mean, I personally, like, I started trail running about 3 years ago, I think. And I first started trail running because I trained for oh shoot, not Hickson, but gosh, oh my gosh, can't even remember right now. Anyway, I did a 10K trail run, and then I did 2 years. 2 years we did Ragnar, and it's it's kind of a different beast, but it's actually like it's really kind of fun to like again get into it, and sort of like see what your body is capable of, and those like when you do tumble, those scars kind of become these like badges of yeah, exactly, like, oh, look at this awesome thing that happened. Cool. Like I think it's kind of a fun fun activity. It's a little different than road running. I think it requires a little bit of a different mental capacity and sort of maybe toughness, that especially when you're doing long distance, something like Ragnar, where you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you're just sort of like, it's me and my own 2 feet to carry me the next 10 miles or whatever it is. Yeah, it's fun. I love it. And yeah, I can't wait to get out and do some more of it. So Pat and Jake, one more time, just tell us a little bit more about like what you guys do, how people can find you. Can I get a training plan from you? Like, how do you guys help out? I know you guys do nutrition as well too. So yeah, just tell us a little bit more about what you guys do, and so people can kind of connect with you if they would like.
Yeah, so kind of Jake mentioned it in the beginning, but we do kind of remote coaching. We're all based in the La Crosse area, besides one of our coaches that live in the Twin Cities area, but kind of everything from beginning, just starting out to running like even a mile to like running 200 milers. So everything in between. And the nice thing about just us in general is that we really try to focus on the movement and really focusing on where you're at, right? So the big difference between like just finding any training plan online that you can get for free or buying a book, that's great for kind of learning how your body responds to different things, but those training plans are really going to be focused on whoever created them. They're going to be really well, they're going to work well for those people. So having a coach in general is taking kind of that guesswork, that mental thinking about what am I doing that's going to be specific for me and my goals. What does that kind of look like from a weekly standpoint to a daily standpoint, from the mobility to strength to the actual running piece of things. So yeah, that's kind of the big things.
Our goal is to help you run at your best
Lifetime.
without obviously occurring any injuries or those aches or pains.
And then on the chat, somebody is asking, so the name of the Lacrosse Trail Runners Facebook group, was there something that you guys had mentioned?
So it's just a Facebook Messenger group.
Well, there is the River City Running Club.
Oh.
Yeah, we can add to
add
that. Yeah,
people.
there's the River City Running Club, which has quite a few like group runs and some of the trail runs as well. That's the best option.
Yeah, and then the other one we were talking about was the Southeast Minnesota Trail Runners.
Yeah.
Another option there. So yeah, awesome. Okay, so we are kind of coming up on our hour here, and I think we covered a lot of ground. So I think we did pretty good. I think kind of the key takeaways, right, are, go out, see the trail, test it out first before you just go, running, balls to the walls, on a trail. Just do it. You have to just go out and, get over that sort of like mental block of, being afraid of falling or whatever. Gear isn't all that different from what you're going to use on the road, other than, the kinds of things that, we talked about in terms of, grip and things like that on your shoes. And there was a question on the chat about whether trail shoes will last the same amount of miles. I would say about the same. 300 to 500 miles is probably about the same, that you would get on a trail shoe as you would on a road shoe. Yes. And then, that kind of strengthening of those the ankles, the core strength is important as well too. And then find somebody to run with. I mean, that seems like that's kind of the the other kind of thing here that we're hearing a lot about is find somebody to take you out and enjoy the trails with. So did you guys have any other takeaways you wanted to sort of add as we kind of wrap up here?
Yeah, unfortunately right now, given the time of year, the trails probably should be avoided with the whole freeze thaw going on. So wait a few more weeks. The issue, if you get on the trails now and they're just muddy, it creates a lot of ruts down the road, and they're not as enjoyable when it is dry out. But yeah, that's issue we're dealing with in lacrosse right now. Not sure if it's the same for you guys over in Rochester, but things are pretty muddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's really enjoyable. There's so many places to explore, so many people to meet, and I just feel like the community is so strong in the trail running world as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to be kind of continuing doing these education nights hosted by TerraLoco. We have one coming up in a couple of weeks on running form, so that should be kind of an interesting topic. Although I will want to make sure I point out that running form on the road is going to be different than running form on the trail. So we're probably not going to be talking specifically about trail running in that conversation, but that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And we will have this recorded, and I'll post this onto that Facebook event as well, so you can kind of come back and review some of this as well. And I'll try to gather all these resources that have been kind of mentioned, sharing Trail Transformation's website, so you can find them if you want to reach out to them for coaching. Southeast Minnesota Trail Runners, a couple of those other places as well too. So you guys kind of have those resources in the Facebook event. So somebody is actually asking if we sell running shoes online, and yes, we do. So you can go to our website, runterraloco.com, and click on the shop link, and then you'll click on shop shoes, and there'll be lots of options. And the cool thing about our online store is that it's not just the stuff that's available in our shop. It actually links to everything that's available for us to order from the different brands. So even if it's a shoe that we don't carry, or a size or a color we don't normally carry, you can actually order it on the website, and we can ship it to you. So yeah, lots of options on the website for TerraLoco as well. I'll gather all these resources and make sure that everybody is aware of them, and I hope that we'll have some new trail runners in our midst. So Pat and Jake, thank you guys so much for joining us from Trail Transformation tonight, and thank you to everybody else who joined us tonight to talk trail running. So have a
Listening.
Thanks, Tiffany.
yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. All right, have a good night, everybody. See you later.
Yeah.